Gutter trash.
There are a lot of videos on this site about the rival subgenre of bosses. It's a favourite for I think pretty much everyone, myself included. Having a usually humanoid character who grows with you in strength instead of the typical big bad whose power is established from the start creates a much more personal connection between you, your journey, and the rival. If anything, it gives the player more motivation to beat this guy over the guy the game actually wants you to beat for the story. Now there's a lot of amazing rivals, and they end up becoming the most popular characters in their respective franchises, but I want to talk about a subgenre of the subgenre. The robotic rival. So before we get into what that means, let's make sure everyone's on the same page. A rival is a non-player character who shares a lot of traits with the character that you control. These can be design or story elements, but usually this means that they have a moveset that mirrors your own. Although none of these are necessary to be considered a rival, at least one of them should be present. What's important is that they are in direct opposition to you. They aren't an overwhelming force like the big final boss, but someone closer to your skill level, which makes the fight feel more competitive. That's why these fights stick, because they feel like a personal challenge the game put in front of you to overcome. Just to use an example real quick, Gary, I'm not calling him Blue, from Pokemon Red, Blue and Yellow is the professor's dickhead grandson who mistreats his Pokemon but started at the same time as you. He's also gunning to be champion and will act as a roadblock to your journey at multiple points. Gary being this asshole mirror of the player who's growing and journeying through Kanto while you are, makes him more memorable than he would have been if he was just a boss at the end of the game. The build-up is what makes him effective and iconic. So now that we all understand what a rival is, I'm going to show you the wonderful world of the subgenre I just made up. So let's get started. And to do that, we'll be looking at what I consider to be the first true rival in a video game. Okay, not the tennis for two. No, that's not a rival. I think behind Nintendo themselves, Capcom really owned the NES in terms of games. Mega Man easily being one of, if not the most iconic third-party series on the system. I mean, they managed to get 6 of these games out on one system. Can you imagine getting 6 of any series on one well? Release me! Mega Man 3 introduced a few staples to the rest of the series. Slide Move, the Robot Dog Rush, and this guy. This is Proto Man, the first of Dr. Wily's several robots that you fight across the series, although at this point in the game, he's going by the identity of Break Man. At the end of the game, he shows up to save Mega Man from falling rubble, where Dr. Light reveals to Mega Man Proto Man's identity as his older brother. Okay, so why? You don't really get an explanation of why in the game, but the lore has been expanded upon since then. Proto Man was created with a failure in his energy core, and without being treated he would inevitably cease functioning in time. Dr. Light offers to repair him, however Proto Man, born as the first robot with self-awareness, clings on to that, afraid that the repairs would change that identity, so he escapes. After being found by Dr. Wily, the main villain, this guy, the one with the UFO that goes, he repairs Proto Man anyway. Proto Man, feeling indebted to Wily, works with him throughout Mega Man 3 in secret. However, seeing Mega Man himself elicits a change of heart for Proto Man, leading to that ending. I swear to God, if I have to say the word fucking man again, I'm gonna it's too many times. Proto Man, from this point on, becomes a mainstay in the classic series, acting as Mega Man's older brother, helping him gain info on Wily's plans and looking out for him. And I think his continued presence speaks to his popularity as a character. Let's look at his design. Immediately, a lot of common rival design tropes are present here. What sticks out the most is his primary red colour scheme, made to contrast against Mega Man's all blue. However, instead of being red on light red, like Mega Man's blue on light blue, He's given grey as a secondary colour to break up the design a little bit. It helps give him an older feel. Like the full colour sleek paint job design Light went with for the blue bomber over there wasn't thought out this time. He's also got himself a yellow scarf, which I think is here to help visually communicate Proto's yearning for individuality. Picking the accessory in a colour he wasn't built with helps give him more identity. And finally, those white accents on the helmet are reminiscent of the white streaks used in a lot of Sentai heroes, which, you know, while I'm not knowledgeable in... any of this, I guess can work as an indicator of his true allegiances to the side of good and not Dr. Wily. Overall, I think it's a really solid design, and it works as a great contrast to Mega Man, alongside giving us some of those design elements to help speak to his character. Finally, let's talk about his gameplay. I'm excited for this one, here he comes, let's go! Yeah, he doesn't really, there we go. We're done? We're done, okay. Yeah, so he does follow a lot of what makes a rival, he just doesn't do a lot. He acts like a scared Mega Man player, spamming the Mega Buster and jumping, which, I mean, yeah, that is acting like the player sometimes, but no slide, or anything that makes him better than our Mega Man? Not really. I mean, he has a shield, which, you know, sometimes it works, but this is really the one area where I think Proto Man is showing his age, and it's less to do with him and more to do with the game and system he's on. Mega Man 3 came out in 1990, which makes Proto Man one of the first of his kind, predating the Pokemon rivals and the actually good Street Fighter game, so I think he definitely deserves his recognition as being one of the first video game rivals, and arguably the first robot rival. Okay, so if we've looked at one of the first, let's go way forward and look at one of the most recent, from a game that isn't even fully out yet.
Insignificant fuck! I will grind you down until the very fucks cry for mercy! My hand shall relish, ending you here and now!
Ultra Kill is... It's pretty good. He plays this guy, V1, a machine fighting in hell for blood to sustain itself after the extinction of mankind, with the end goal of... I don't fucking know. Quite various demons and machines throughout, however we're focusing on one machine in particular. This guy. Here we have V2, and we're going to work backwards with him, so let's start with gameplay. And if you're new to Ultra Kill, V2 is gonna kick your ass. V2 is what I consider to be the first major roadblock in the game difficulty-wise. He uses every tool you've obtained up to this point, slowly familiarizing yourself with them, but V2, he just knows how to use them. He'll send out shotgun grenades, shoot coins, and deflect bullets off of them, destroy your cover if you hide from him. Looking at Proto Man from earlier, his fight feels like you're fighting a panicked Mega Man player who doesn't really know the game yet. V2 feels like you're playing against someone who's closer to beating the game than you are, which helps develop this grudge against this dumb robot every time you're laughed at on the death screen. And as if the game knows you've developed that grudge, when you beat him, you get to take his arm. skip ahead a few layers and we reach this giant pyramid. You've seen this throughout your adventure in Dry Desert, always in the background, and now you're inside. As you scale the pyramid and reach the throne room, there he is. Smug Arsehole even got a new arm. V2 has grown like the player since the last fight. He now has the railgun weapon, is able to flip coins in the air, and can dash. He also has an extra health bar this time, and the arena is more chaotic with shifting pillars and more levels of elevation. It's a great escalation of what the first encounter was, turning up every element just one notch higher, while still feeling like the same boss from before. It's a staple of the rival archetype, with Virgil's progression in Devil May Cry 3 being the easiest comparison that we could make here. Getting stronger while your in-game opponent also gets stronger helps further that grudge and drive to be your rival, to prove that you are better.
I'm better! I am better!
So now, he's dead. He's totally dead, just a puddle on the floor, never coming back, ever. Let's look at the design. There's not really much going on that's different here at first. The big thing is the change in colour. Ultra Kill has a lot of Capcom DNA in its veins, and the design of the rivals being very clearly inspired by the likes of Dante and Virgil, and, as a result, Mega Man and Proto Man, hey look at that, it's all linked. He's a little taller than V1, which helps make him more imposing as a boss, even if you can't really notice it in game, and the only other change is his arm, the thing you take from him. It's bulkier with much more metal plating than his left or either of your arms. Wow, that's it. That was like 3 sentences. Okay, so there really wasn't a lot to look at here, but we can get more out of V2 from his story and animations. V2 is an upgraded, newer version of our player character V1, and while his design isn't doing much to really show that, his animation is doing a lot of heavy lifting in turning V2 from a roadblock to an actual character. When we first meet V2 in 1-4 Clair de Lune, this is the calmest area in the game so far. There isn't any combat before this fight, and when he bursts through the window, he greets you with a bow before the fight begins. A gameplay mechanic I haven't mentioned up until now is if you run away or avoid attacking V2 for long enough, he enters a berserker state. However, when you finish the fight, he flees. So putting all these things together, we can infer V2 has a pretty human trait. He has pride. His arena has a more classy feel with classical music in the background, and he tries to present himself to be in line with that. However, we also get to see the fragility of it. Fragility? Whatever. He gets frustrated when you avoid fighting him, and doesn't see the fight through to its conclusion because he's scared of losing. It's very unique behavior compared to any of the machines in the game before this. Nobody ever runs away from a fight. And when you see him again, you can see how the previous encounter has actually affected him. He sits on the throne lax, 1 foot up, with his head resting on his newly forged arm. That good posture and form he had before isn't there anymore, and instead of greeting you with a bow, he greets you with cracking his knuckles. Do robots even... Hang on. What are you cracking in your knuckles? Synovial fluid? How to pronounce synovial?
Synovial fluid.
Synovial fluid. Okay. Huh. The point is, V2's change in demeanor points to a fracturing of his pride. All of that good fighter presentation has gone, and now it's purely the grudge. It's like an inversion of how the player felt during round 1, where now V2 feels like he has to prove himself by beating you. It's a very, very human trait, all told through his gameplay and animation work. It's amazing stuff. So while V2 excels in gameplay storytelling, his design and overall narrative presence can leave a bit to be desired. Still an amazing rival though, but considering how the developer seems pretty done with V2,
This character is so fucking dead. Reconstructs what? There's nothing left.
I don't think we'll be getting any more on V2, which is a shame as both of his fights are highlights for me. So, before we take a look at our next example, I'm going to fire off some names that I couldn't get to or really talk about, so let's do this very quickly. Robo-Kai. I love him. I love how he's a really dumb robot copy of Kai, but that's the issue with him. He's a mass-produced copy, not a rival. Please add him to Guilty Gear Strive. In the time it took me to write the script, they added him to Guilty Gear Strive. Thank you very much. Metal Mario. We can talk about the one from the go-karting game or the one from the go-karting game. One has a cool design, the other one doesn't. They both suck, so we're moving on. Tockman. I'm really going this far. Giant Robot Pac-Man. Using the Mega Power Pellet to become big like in the OG game is a great idea. Although he's really around for the final boss and doesn't do much else. He's also not a robot, he's a mech controlled by a ghost. God fucking damn. Mecha Zangief. No, I'm not doing Mecha Zangief. Mecha Bandicoot from Crash Twinsanity. He's a mech. No! Can I even include Jetstream Stam? Jetstream. Ultron is pretty good. Not a game character, but I'm grasping at straws here, so please give me this. Has basically all of Iron Man's abilities, struggles with his individuality as a machine and non-human. My only issue is that he is less of a rival and more of just a straight up villain. Like, he's not Tony Stark's on and off rival, he's more of a big villain for everyone. I'm also talking about the MCU one, I don't know what the fuck's going on over here. Okay, Mecha Godzilla. Now this is better. Has a replicated version of Godzilla's atomic breath, insane durability. This is a good robot rival. Initially, he's a piloted mech which sucks, but gaining his own control, this is good. We have to have just one more robot rival in this section like this, just one more. Mecha Naruto. I don't really want to talk about Mecha Naruto. Okay, so my parameters for what makes a robot rival are weird and probably a little inconsistent. I haven't really explained them until now, so let's look at V2 and Proto Man together and see the common themes that make my so-called robot rival subgenre. Number 1. A design made to look like or contrast the player. Number 2. Attacks with moves either similar or identical to the player character. Number 3. Fucking robot. And number 4. Struggles with some form of identity. With Proto Man, this was the fear of losing his individuality, and with V2 it was the fragility of his. The persona he put up and how quickly it was teared down by us. Both of these characters excel in one or more of these 4 areas, but still consist of every single one. The issue with most of the smaller examples I gave is that missing final piece of personality. They aren't robot rivals, they're just machines. Usually piloted by other fucking people. They're not characters on their own, they're weapons. So, let's look at one final robot rival. The robot rival in my opinion. One with a sick-ass design, gameplay that reflects the player's own abilities, and a personality and story about the struggles with identity. Of course, I'm talking about Emerald. You fucking idiots, this has all been a ruse so I can talk about
Metal Sonic.
Fuck Proto Guy, fuck Z4, fuck whatever Mecha Zangief. No, this is the robot rival. The most prominent, the most popular, and my personal favorite. I love this fucking thing. Everything we have talked about so far applies to Metal Sonic, and in nearly every section, he blows them out of the water. Okay, so let's work from design first, then to gameplay, then story this time. There's a lot I want to talk about, and probably a lot I'm going to miss. So let's do a very quick overview of who Metal Sonic is first. Metal Sonic is the metal version of Sonic the Hedgehog. Alright, let's go. In all seriousness, Metal is Eggman's latest creation in the 1993 Sega CD game, Sonic CD. He uses Metal to try and take over a mini planet, kidnap Sonic's not girlfriend, and then both him and Metal are defeated in the end. Metal's appeared a lot since then, and we will get to that later, but for now, that's all you're gonna need to know. So, let's actually talk about his design now. God, where do I start? This is gonna be very heavy Metal Sonic glaze, as if my enthusiasm wasn't clear enough at the start there, so I do apologize, but like, this is my shit. I want to talk about this. Metal Sonic has an excellent design right off the bat. It's obviously taking a lot from the original classic Sonic design, which in of itself is amazing. It's a very cartoony Mickey Mouse-esque design with his exaggerated body features such as hands, his feet, and most importantly, the head. A very bright colour palette made of two big primary colours and some white accents to help add a little extra style. But the spiky quills give him a much sleeker and cooler look than the big red round plumber he was made to compete with in the 1990s. Metal Sonic is if you did all of that again. His hands have huge spiky fingers larger than his palm, his nose is a full-on safety hazard compared to the cuter round nose on Sonic, and his quills have been simplified further to 3 spikes in a triangular fashion. Metal feels like his creator looked at ways to make a cooler and more modern Sonic, while still keeping to the original cartoony, pudgy frame of the classic blue lure. His white accents have been replaced by shiny silver, which also replaces his skin tone. The shade of blue used as his paint changes depending on the artwork or in-game sprite, but typically he's shown with an even darker shade of blue than Sonic. And he's been given new yellow accents, most likely as a trademark by Eggman, as Eggman's colour scheme is always given to us with red and yellow as its main colours. And of course, the pupils are now simple, dangerous red semicircles on a black backdrop, easily communicating that this Sonic is not a friend. There's other fun elements like Sonic's butt quill being a part of a jet engine on his back, but the point is this design is doing a lot to differentiate itself from Sonic, while still working in Sonic's frame and still looking like him. It's genius, and it's why this design is stuck. If you look at other Robo-Sonic designs in the series, none of them are anywhere near as popular as Metal, as they either stray too far from Sonic's design, or fail to do enough differently. Metal's popularity is easily unrivaled, and I think it's purely down to the tightrope he's walking between being his own unique robot design and working within the confines of Sonic's. Hell, it's so good that when the cast got redesigned, Metal barely got touched up. When it happened again, and some of the cast got some major redesigns, Metal barely changed again. And then when everyone got redesigned again, guess who barely changed again? He's near perfect. I think the fact that Metal is the most merchandise badnik out of any of them is saying a lot about how appealing this design is. Like, you don't see this many toys of coconuts, or Chopper, this fuck from Mean Bean Machine. I sort of skimmed over how Metal was defeated in the summary, and it all ends here. Stardust Speedway Act 3. This is the only part of the game where you get to fight Metal. He's appeared earlier in the game and he could deal damage to you, but you couldn't touch him. And otherwise, he's been seen kicking these animals on projectors. Now, on the penultimate level, it's time for the showdown you were promised on the box. Metal Sonic is the most unique fight in the series up to this point, as he's not a fight at all really. No, Metal challenges Sonic on his greatest talent, his speed. The fight is a race. Eggman appears behind you to zap you if you're too slow, and if you can't reach the goal before Metal, you die. Metal has a couple of attacks here, one where he pulses with electricity and touching him gets you hurt, and another where he boosts forward. But the main obstacle in this race for me is the track itself. It'd be one thing if this was just a straight line, but it's a track littered with spikes, hills, and slopes to stop your momentum, and to really test how well you've understood Sonic's physics up until this point. If you jump at the height of a hill, you'll gain a greater advantage through these platforms above you, but if you jump too early, you could end up slowing yourself down. Meanwhile, Metal has to deal with none of this. In fact, any spikes in his way he'll destroy without issue. Is that cheating? Probably, but Eggman's never been one to fight fair. So on his own, Metal Sonic wouldn't actually be that hard of a fight. But the mix of Eggman behind and the challenging track design make this race a sort of test before the finale. Even though the finale is like the easiest boss in the game. It's clear why this fight sticks out from the rest of the classic series. Sonic 3 had more fights that happened while racing, but not another full-on race between you and the game. And it's why you see it brought back for Generations and then Mania. Let's take a quick look at his animations before we move on. He doesn't have many, but the ones we have are great. Right at the start of the fight, he mocks Sonic's iconic idle animation, which is a great bit of immediate rivalry building between you and the character. But he lacks any of the expression in the face, a theme you'll see throughout all of his other animations too. Take a look at this run. I mean, you can't even call that a run, he just glides in a very static pose. Compare that to Sonic, who tuck his arms in and crouch down slightly to be more aerodynamic. Or when you move at top speed and we get this cartoony figure 8 outline from how quick his legs are moving. There's way more character in Sonic's animations by design, because he's the real deal. The last one I want to mention is his dash, which is when Metal breaks out of this static floating pose into something more aggressive, head first with his claws stretched out. It reads as something more desperate, which is interesting, as he usually only does this move when he's falling behind in the race. Like he overloaded his own limiters for a short while to prove himself as better than you. Maybe that's not what Sonic Team was going for, and maybe I'm reading too much into one little animation, but I think you'll start to see where I'm coming from as we now tackle Metal's story. Here's the Metal Sonic media I'm going to be covering in this character analysis thing. I know the IDW series has more, and trust me, I love it, but this video is already super long, and I don't see this being the last time I want to talk about Metal. So we'll stick to everything up until the end of Sonic Heroes. Okay? Okay. So, as we saw from his animations, there is some semblance of a personality here. While Sonic the Hedgehog the movie, not that one, this one, isn't canon, it gives us more examples of how Metal has a personality. The most important scene from this movie for us is Metal's final one. After being defeated and nearly sinking into lava, Sonic offers his hand out to Metal, only for him to slap it away, choosing to die instead of accepting any help from the real Sonic. And that's the crux of Metal's personality and drive. The real Sonic. See, Metal is programmed to believe that he is the real Sonic. This guy, this weird freak, is the imposter, and it is Metal's only purpose in life to defeat him. So when he loses again and again and again, robot or not, it eats away at Metal. Think of it this way. If we humans had a set directive in life with no free will to pick and choose what we actually wanted to do, and proceeded to fail at it over and over and over and over again, what would that do to you? This leads to Metal taking a big 10-year-old break from the spotlight in order to make his most important appearance to date. Sonic Heroes sees Metal's most intricate plan so far. Realizing the mistakes of trying to approach Sonic head-on failing, he uses deception to slowly make himself stronger over the course of the 4 campaigns. Metal's new upgrades allowing him to mimic his favourite movie, Terminator 2, by turning into Liquid and shapeshifting into Eggman, tricking Sonic and friends into tracking him down, so he could copy the biodata from each of them alongside Chaos from Sonic Adventure 1 and the Ultimate Lifeform himself. I think it's interesting that Metal decides to turn against Eggman in this plan. We don't ever get told, but I believe it's implied that Metal's AI was allowed to grow and learn outside of just being plain obedient to Eggman in order to defeat Sonic. But doing this allowed Metal to think. Think about what he wants, his place, and the best way to do it. In letting his AI expand on his own, Eggman let Metal's resentful drive to prove he is the real Sonic completely overtake everything, leading to a warping of that goal that nearly ends the whole world. Probably the most important part of these new forms of Metal is we finally get to hear him speak.
Long time no see, Sonic. My loathsome copy.
And through him speaking, we get to see where his head is at after all of these previous defeats.
I was created for the sole purpose of destroying you, but I can never seem to defeat you. That is why I transform my own body with my own hands.
Metal's identity crisis is pushing him to change what it means to match his directives. To become the true Sonic is no longer just beating him to prove he's superior, he'll prove he's superior by being superior to everyone, as the world's Metal Overlord.
I shall become the ultimate overlord, ruling as the world's most supreme being.
In this form, he claims Sonic is nothing more than a speck of dust.
Now you're nothing but a speck of dust to me.
And that he is no longer afraid of anything.
See me as I am, no longer afraid of anything.
But he is afraid. Telling us he's no longer afraid of anything confirms that there always was a fear of being inferior, failing to meet his objective of defeating Sonic. I don't know anyone that would throw a battleship at a speck of dust. Metal Overlord is Metal at his most powerful, but his most desperate. Completely consumed by his fears of being inferior, he has taken the nuclear option of just laying waste to all life on the planet and taking over. Imagine losing so hard at a race, you turn into this. I can't imagine this is what Eggman thought it would be like.
Why? I had it all! I am the ultimate overlord, Metal Sonic. I am the real Sonic.
Yeah! We did it!
Phew, that was pretty tough. Too bad it's all over. For you!
Fuck you, Sonic Heroes. Metal Sonic is fascinating to me. None of this writing is Shakespeare, it never is. I'm probably giving the team way more credit than they deserve. But Heroes does deserve credit for creating a few more layers to this minor villain from Sonic CD by giving him insecurities and fears. I think in a gameplay sense, him being the first true test of Sonic's main attribute in the series makes him stand out against the rest of Eggman's machines, along with a design made to mimic you, and a personality built around the rivalry between your character and himself. Metal sticks with you, and it's why he's my favourite Sonic character and my favourite robot rival. So, those were some of my favourite robot rivals. I hope my discussion gets you talking about your favourite robot rivals, because God knows it was hard trying to think of more than 3, because I really want to hear everyone's favourites. This is the first video I've uploaded to this account, and the recording you're hearing now is me right after finishing the edit. Fun fact, I started this video in January, and I started the edit for it in May. I have rewritten, re-recorded, and re-edited this video a few times over, and I think I just need to put it out there. I have my problems with it, my voice, the structure, the 70 different fonts I used. I even considered scrapping the whole thing about halfway through the edit. But if I picked and prodded at this video forever, it was never going to come out. What I'm trying to say is if you're on the fence or lacking confidence in pursuing a big creative project like this, just go for it. Your first video is not going to be your favourite, you're going to make mistakes and it won't be your best. But that's why this is a long game. I hope with future videos to improve, and I hope if you made it to the end of this video, thank you by the way, you stick with the channel to see how I grow. Or if you hated the video, just criticize me in the comments. Fuck it, I'm open to criticism. So, thanks again, and I'll see you in whatever I make next. Goodbye.